wanted to run, we wanted to fall together. Back then our world seemed so clear. We grew so bright, shimmering lights around us. We'd take flight into the sky. How many worlds would you cross to use the light that's right in front of you? There is no light on the other side. I say, look straight ahead and you will see. You will see. How many worlds would you cross to use the light that's right in front of you? There is no light on the other side. I say, look straight ahead and you will see.
So we're here for round 5 of the Trans Nation Challenge. We've had 4 very exciting races proceeding to this point, and many different winners and different pole sitters. Who can we see go to the top at the Catalonian circuit? We're going to find out in a day's time. Hi, I'm Brett Keenan, welcoming you to the Trans Nation Challenge round 5 pre-race broadcast. And joining me today is Guy Tasker, Jayden, Alton, Jonathon, Carten and McKenzie Stewart. So a bit bigger lineup than previous days. So, boys, we're going into Spain, which has been broadcasted a lot by a lot of drivers as the strongest track for them, the weakest track for them. Defending champion Arash Uzumaki claims that this is by far his strongest track, and we could see a different change in fortune in the F1. Guy, we're going to start with you. Let's go back to Russia. Russia was a very tight, action-packed race for all 3 categories, including the F1. Penalties galore in F1, and it really came down to who had the least penalties at the end. Black Mamba 0113 claiming the win, his second of the season, ahead of his brother with Xeri in third. So Toro Rosso, pretty good weekend for them.
Yeah, I think so. I think they're definitely making their push now for the title. Obviously, Black Mamba having missed a few races, probably hasn't helped them out there, but yeah, they're coming on strong. A strong weekend for them, that's for sure. Red Bull obviously were the leaders in the F1, and they dropped a few points, a bit of a weaker weekend from them. So yeah, constructors getting quite close, and obviously Black Mamba showing the pace that he's got. So looking like he's going to be right there for the driver's title as well.
So having a look at the driver's title for the TNC F1, and Arash Uzumaki, the defending champion, still holding on to that championship lead heading into the Spanish Grand Prix. Of course, that's now been chopped down to 10 points to both Black Mamba 0113 and Rabbit Donkey 96, both tied at 50 points. Plev sits P4 on 41 points ahead of Xeri in the Toro Rosso. Noek and Westland Gone make up the other 2, and then Bruno Galavisa, who has announced that he will be partnering up with Arash Uzumaki for this week and from here on out at Ferrari. So the Brazilian will look to make Ferrari a strong package, and we saw that in the F1 race at China. And Jonathon, for his first race, he got pole position and finished on the podium, so it was a good result for Bruno, wasn't it?
Definitely it was. In GP2, was it?
In the F1.
Which one was Bruno?
Bruno was the McLaren Honda driver.
McLaren Honda.
He didn't finish on the podium, though.
Yeah, he finished P3. Actually, we did. He finished
P2.
Yeah, P2.
Behind me. Just thought I'd put that in there.
Oh, so we're talking about a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
We're talking,
So,
we're talking about China.
Yeah, definitely. I thought we were still
Took a
talking
while to cock on there with Jonathon, but
about Russia, but no. I think the step up for him to F1, on a permanent basis, is definitely it's definitely going to be what's going to help him out for sure. He's going to be competitive, especially like you said, second place at China. We'll just see how it goes from there.
And of course, no changes furthermore, but moving, we'll look at the results for the race 2, and it was Black Mamba, like I said, Black Mamba 0113 taking the race win from NoX 3712. Xeri in the Toro Rosso P3 from defending champion and still current points leader Narashu Uzumaki. Westland Gone, Plebs and Rabbit Donkey 96 making up the top 7 there. And then in constructors, which has dropped quite drastically, Toro Rosso lead with a 7-point gap over Red Bull, and then have a 34-point gap over Ferrari, with Mercedes only 9 points behind the Scuderia. So looking ahead now to GP2. Sorry, I'm a bit mixed up because we are moving to F2, but anyway, the GP2, we saw an unbelievable race by McLaren Honda, and Guy, we watched this in the commentary, and we were just in awestruck at M. Verce's pace in the week.
Oh yeah, it was a dominant performance, possibly. Well, I would go as far as saying it was the most dominant performance I've seen in the TNC so far. That GP2 race, that he was being able to take it easy out front and still extending his lead, and just looked so comfortable in the wet. It never looked in doubt really, and really impressive showing from Verce there.
And then of course Pure Axel 2121 coming from pretty much the back of the field at the start of the race to finish P2 after a brilliant battle with Carten 1979. So the results for that race were M. Verce from McLaren, Pure Axel 2121, McLaren Honda scoring the first 1-2 finish in the Trans-Nation Challenge. Carten 1979 making his championship charge more apparent with P3 from his younger cousin Ian Betts in the Red Bull. Twin brother to Ian Betts 715 finished P10 from Beardy in the Haas. Of course, those two came together at turn 1. Beardy having almost taking the lead into turn 1 despite all that. It was a good start. It was a good start actually initially from the start of the GP2. It was just the first turn that kind of threw it all away, and then we had new driver Sarah May in the Haas finishing in P7, and then of course Rip It Church, Matt Your Daddy, Stuart McKenzie 2 out of the race, and Warlord 1313, the pole sitter, also out of the race. So looking at the championship, Stuart McKenzie 2 now only holds an 11-point lead into the championship from Cart. M. Verce and Pure Axel 2121 in second and third, because M. Verce is level on points with Cart after that round. Beardy, Bet 715, Matt Your Daddy, Warlords 1313, Ian Betts 900, Rip It Church, Conman 69, and Sarah May wrap up the thing. And then in constructors, McLaren Honda take the lead of the Constructors' Championship, nearly over 30 points ahead of Sauber. So, Mackenzie, Ferrari looked like the team that was the team to beat at the start of the Trans-Nation Challenge for, I'd say, pretty much all 3 categories. But now, Ferrari are the ones trying to chase down the other drivers, or the other constructors.
Yeah, well, especially for GP2, like it's quite hard trying to challenge for the constructors titles when there's only one car there every other week. Like, you know, I'm finding it easy to be up the front, but it's just having both McLaren Hondas and both Saubers up the front every race. Like it just means we fall further and further behind in the constructors. So. No, and then this, like in the other categories as well, we had the Joker move up to F1 as well. Remember that? But then of course we had that whole incident with Guy and Black Mamba in the Russian Grand Prix as well. So yeah, the Ferrari definitely looks like the team's struggling at the moment. But I reckon in all 3 categories, Ferrari will get back to the top. Come the next 100% race at Monaco. I mean at Canada.
Well, of course, Ferrari do still hold the record of being the only car in the category to win in all 3 categories so far, so Ferrari can at least take that away. So moving into GP3, we saw PM&A repeat win in the GP3 ahead of new Ferrari driver Banana Josh. But I've got to say, Guy, and we touched note on this, driver of the day definitely went to Jordan Dittmer, didn't it?
Yeah, well, it was quite the drive and quite the. I don't think you'd be insulted to say it was a bit of a surprise, really, having seen his pace in the past few weekends, and has been a little bit off the pace of the leaders, but all of a sudden, that weekend, yeah, a really strong showing, all round, and just didn't look like he was going to let up, and just kept going, and yeah, I was really impressed, but yeah, as you say, again, obviously, PMA up there again, and a few of the usuals getting up there, Banana Josh, and yeah, it was another entertaining race in GP3, which is proving to be so close, really, down there.
And Jay, we'll cross to you for a second there, because you've had quite an interesting season per se. I mean, you didn't attend Bahrain, but yeah, it's been quite a up and down season for you so far at the Williams, but your teammate is certainly picking up the pieces for you, that's for sure. No. I don't think we've got picking transmission. We'll come back to that anyway. So, speaking of the incident between Black Mamba 0113, the Joker 35, and the Rabbit Donkey 96, the officials have actually suspended the Joker 35's license, so he has been expelled from the Trans Nation Challenge as a cause to it, for not only causing an avoidable collision, but for also slandering and abusing other officials during the event. So that's just how it all plays out there. But either one of the things about Russia that's always been interesting is the level of how much people can push too hard and cause too many mistakes, and we definitely saw it in F1. Not a single driver came out of that race without a like a corner cutting penalty or anything like that. And then XNZ Pro 55, the pole sitter for the GB3, abusing corner cutting as well, and ended up well down the order as a result of that. So, Jonathon, looking into that, do you think, because the F1 plays under the strict corner cutting rules, do you think all three categories should run under it as well?
Not entirely. There are some tracks that yes, strict corner cutting in those tracks, because corner cutting is pretty much difficult to do. But when you look at especially the F1, it's supposed to be top of the top notch, and everybody having that corner cutting issue on the strict corner cutting, it's like these lower tiers, if we're still learning. So if we have strict corner cutting, then you can be guaranteed there's going to be 2 or 3 drivers getting disqualified, because they're still quite coming under the wraps of the actual series itself, and then they've got and then pretty much from there, it's like it's rather difficult for them.
So, well, in saying that too, we've got to come under the impression that once we evolve to season 2018, both categories will be running strict corner cutting, and there is no exceptions from that. So now, speaking on Guy again, we're going to move to the second of our newest subjects, the Guy Tasker's moment of seriousness. And he had such a big list of people that he had to interview for this one day. They were all too busy, so he had to settle for second best. So who better to start off with than the boss? So watch that.
So, hi guys, and welcome to our first moment of seriousness of the series. So, I'm joined here by Narashi Uzumaki, or Brett, as we know him now by personal terms. So, Brett, we'll start off just with a little bit about you, I think. So, as I've just said, your real name is Brett. You go by the username of Narashi Uzumaki, the F1 Ferrari driver, of course. Defending champion, I won't leave that out. And so you're from New Zealand, yes?
Yep, that's correct.
Yep. And how long have you been a fan of F1 for, would you say?
It would go as far back as 1998. It's about probably about when I got into motorsport in general. My first ever motorsport race I ever watched was the Australian Supercar Championship, and from there I was hooked on it. I was I was unfortunately one of the kind of people that really hated the idea of speed. Like, so when going on car trips, you know, my father would always go quick and it would always scare the crap out of me. And then the unfortunate side about it is that as I grew older, the idea of going into motorsport was one of my biggest passions. So unfortunately, by the time that my ideals were set in motion to want to be in motorsport, it was probably a bit too late. But yeah, I've been following the Formula One. I mean, I started watching the Formula One back in 1998, and that was the year that Häkkinen clinched his first title for McLaren. And I remember it mostly because they used to have it on Sunday afternoons on a special program that did highlights for it, because it was always on at such random times of the night, like it is now. But they kept doing that to about 2002, and then I lost contact with it for such a long time, and it wasn't up until I purchased F1 2013, which was actually at the time just a game for me to play. It wasn't something that I wanted to buy because I knew about Formula One. I just bought the game because I wanted to play, and then suddenly the rejuvenation of my enjoyment to Formula One came back, and it wasn't until I had gone to Australia in 2014 with my father in Sydney that I got to see my first Formula One race, the German Grand Prix, and that was actually quite reasonably early for time because of the 2-hour difference that Australia and I had at the time. So that was the race that Nico Rosberg won, and Lewis Hamilton came back from crashing and qualifying. So that and that kind of got me right back into it, and then, of course, I purchased the 2013 season review on DVD, and this is one of the things that a lot of people will come to understand about me. I didn't actually used to like Sebastian Vettel when he was in Red Bull. I used to think he was like what Hamilton has become today. So it wasn't until he moved to Ferrari that the passion to support him came into fact, because he matured so much, and then Hamilton took this mantle. So that's where my dislike of him comes from. But yeah, you know, Formula One's been a part of my life for well over 20 years now, and it's going to carry on.
So, dating back to 1998, as you say, who would you say over that time has been your all-time favourite driver?
Well, when you look back on it, 1998 really only had a couple of figures that really stood out above the rest, and that was Mika Häkkinen, Michael Schumacher, and David Coulthard. So back then, Michael Schumacher was probably, I think my passion for Ferrari has always been there. It's always been Ferrari that I've always supported, no matter who the driver was. It wasn't up until about 2005 when you know, things kind of changed, that I sort of turned my attention to Fernando Alonso, and you know, I still support Fernando despite everything that's gone on with him in his career. You know, he's the only person since Mika Häkkinen in 98-99 to actually beat Schumacher in a straight title fight. I mean, 2005 was a bit different because of the regulations with the tyres, but in 2006 he actually legitimately defeated the 7-time world champion. So it's... Yeah,
well, I think we all hope to see him back up there again, because he deserves to be there.
Well, exactly, and I think this year, the car that they've got, with the Renault Power engine, I think they've definitely got a car that can fight with Red Bull, and then once they complete the R&D development, then they'll definitely be contenders against Ferrari. And I think this is the year that Ferrari really need to kick their gear up, because from what I've heard, Hamilton's got a 5-place grid penalty coming into Bahrain, so this is where Sebastian Vettel needs to really take it to it, get that championship lead extended, so that he can, if Hamilton does establish a fight back, it'll be a lot closer.
Yeah, well, we saw it last season, and looks like it's going to be tight again this season. Anyway, so we'll move on from the real life F1, let's say, and we'll move on to some bits about the league itself, about the TNC. So obviously, we'll start with you as a driver, because obviously you are effectively the boss of the league as well. But we'll start with you as a driver. What would you say coming into the season, obviously being the defending champion, what would you have said your goals for the season would be? I know this has probably been mentioned in past broadcasts, but what would you say your goals for the whole season would be?
Well, one of the most important things that I've always looked at, and I always look back on it in the broadcast, is how I refer to myself as a different person. And I don't know why I do it, but either way, It's a bit strange, but it's just something I do. But coming into the season, I knew that Black Mamba 0113 and Noek 3712 were going to be the guys to beat, without a doubt. They came into the category in the beta test at Canada, and they surprised everyone with their pace. And I think if Black Mamba had attended the one race that he missed in Monaco, I think he would have won the beta test without a doubt, because.
Yeah, that's a very honest opinion. Yeah.
Well, I mean, you look back on it, it's a title win, no matter what you look at it. But you have to look at the facts that kind of the seriousness behind the whole situation is that it was sheer luck that I was able to win the World Championship in the first beta test. And coming into the season, Australia could have gone a hell of a lot better than what it did. The podium, it wasn't there. It wasn't meant to be, really. We didn't have the pace at all in Australia, not one bit. We lucked out with my own teammate, right, basically causing a red flag situation. So it and China kind of proved where we were in pace. So, as a driver, you want to strive to be as good as you are, but when you have a bad race, it morally deflects how you feel, and some drivers can just fling it off and say, okay, I've had a bad race, I'll do better in the next one. But for someone like me, who wants to win, who wants to be on the podium, wants to win the World Championship in a proper environment,
naturally,
it tears you up. It ruins how you operate, and you just feel like, where did I go wrong? What did I do wrong? I mean, I obviously knew what I did wrong in China. I played a stupid game with my tyres, and it came to bite me in the ass on the first lap. So I think if everything had played out the way it was, I don't think I would have won China. I don't think by any stretch of the imagination I could have won China, but I think I could have at least been on the podium or at least top 4. So to come in, to go to Bahrain and to assert my dominance there, which ideally I probably could have done in the previous year too, had I not been a little ambitious coming into turn 1, and then kind of destroyed my own momentum by doing so. I think, crossing the line, and you probably know it yourself because you crossed the line for your first victory the week before that.
Yeah.
It's a weight off your shoulders, and I was emotional to the point of tears, because it's just, you strive so hard. I mean, last season was a winless season for me, apart from the two the two test races, which don't count towards
of course.
They count towards your championship, your career tally, but they don't actually mean anything other more than you were fastest in the testing. So people say winning a championship without winning a race is a greatest accomplishment, but to them it is, but to a driver it's actually not an accomplishment by any stretch of the imagination.
So do you feel that detracted a bit from your title win, from your feelings of joy, let's say? Do you feel like you didn't feel like you quite deserved it as much because you hadn't won a race that year, or are you very much of the consistency wins championships, and that's what you had? Well,
consistency does win championships, and I can at least say I had a few fastest laps and a couple of pole positions to go to my name, but when your championship rival wins a race as well, then you kind of sit there and you look at yourself and think, there's so much more to it. I mean, Monaco was a very exhausting race, and I'm more prepared for that weekend to come than I was that weekend. So, so yeah, getting the first win was definitely great. And going into Russia, I'm confident enough in that I've done enough, but I think in reality a top 3, maybe top 5 is on the cards if everything goes to plan.
Yeah, understandable. So I think I know what's coming. I think you kind of touched upon it, but what would you say your favourite race so far in the TNC has been, including the beta test that we had before? What would you say your favourite race has been?
I would actually have to say, and I know you'd probably think I would have said Bahrain, but actually, I would actually say one of the best race I've had in the Trans Nation Challenge, or even the beta test Trans Tasman Challenge, was actually Abu Dhabi in the beta test. So you know, we started on P3 and we were in a position that we could have actually taken the lead into the first turn. I was just a little bit cautious coming into the corner and gave Noak a bit of a tap, which offset me and let Jimmy through, and then this huge lag spike just shot through, and next thing you know, I was in the fence with a broken front wing, and I thought, well, that's my championship ruined. And then so I trundled back around, got my new front wing, and on my way, and to claw my way back from 15th at the time to finish 5th, and McKenzie crashing out, who was the championship contender at the time. That felt like one of the races where I just got my head down. Like Bahrain, I was so composed, so controlled, and just didn't really put a foot wrong. But Abu Dhabi, it was one of those races that I was just pushing and pushing and pushing to make the car faster and faster every time. And in the process of it, was making up these positions every so often. And then, of course, when McKenzie crashed out, that took a huge weight off the situation as it was. So to cross the line 5th from where I thought I probably wouldn't have even been in the top 10, that was the drive of my life. And unless something else happens in in this season onwards, that to this point would be the best drive that I've ever done in F1 2017 to this day.
Yeah, of course, and sealed you the title as well. So a very, very reasonable choice, I feel. So, lastly, 2 more questions for you as a driver. What race are you looking forward to most this season then?
I think personally, one of my strongest tracks is Spain. Unfortunately, Spain didn't quite go as nicely as it should have in the beta test. Of course, getting pole position was one thing, and then getting shoved off the track by your own teammate is another. So, and then of course there was the unfortunate side of Jonathon losing his car coming through just after the hairpin, and then he didn't go, so that cost me a podium. But Spain, I don't know I mean, something about Spain is it's a track that really demands aggression, and I'm a very aggressive type of driver. So I think this track and I really get along, and it's one of the tracks where I think, and I don't want to sound too pretentious or too overconfident in my abilities, but I think Spain will actually be a track where I think I could personally take it to Noah and David and go for actually beating them in a proper race rather than through strategy or...
Well, it's a bold claim, but I have seen your pace around there, and you are fast around there, I'll give you that. So I wouldn't be surprised. So, closing off this little section on you as a driver, who would you say, come the end of the season, are going to be your biggest rivals for wherever you may be in the title? Who do you see yourself racing against week in, week out, competing in the championship?
Initially, I would have hoped to have been able to say my teammate Jimmy Six, but unfortunately, he, for personal reasons, has withdrawn from the league. I'm not 100% sure of my pace versus my new teammate, the Joker. We know he's quick, that much is true, but that was of course against the slower category. I feel like personally he's going to be a lot like James in the way that he's going to push me to go to higher lengths. But I actually personally think, taking away the two German brothers, I think you and Matt are going to be my biggest rivals for the season, because you know we're so close in the championship picture, and even Matt is still within a shot to, you know, if he take a win that can
undoubtedly
throw anything into the curve. So you know, I'm keeping my eyes on the Red Bulls, and I think also another one of my rivals, I think, and it's going to sound a bit weird, is actually going to be Xeri too, because we've had some really good races. We actually had a really good race in the first race of the beta test in Hungary, and of course, unfortunately, he got the lag of it. So we still had a really good race right up until then, and so you know, I think with the F1, it's probably you're gonna probably see Noah and David shoot up ahead as they start to win more races.
Yeah,
but I think the battle for the third place on the championship roster can go any which way, and I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure that I can at least leave Ferrari with with two things: either with a good result for them, this constructors again, or leave them with one more extra drivers championship, and then of course I'll take the number one over to Alfa Romeo Sauber.
Sounds good. I think all very reasonable. So lastly, just to close off, we're going to move on from you as a driver and just talk about you as the organizer, the big dog, the boss of the TNC. So it's your child, really, your idea. What inspired you to create this league, and what are your hopes for it going forward? What do you want it to become?
So, it started at about August of last year. I was in a bit of a depressive state because me and my partner, who we had bought a house with together, split up, and I ended up moving back in with my parents and got a payout of $14,000 as compensation for being moved out of the house, and I used the money to buy a Logitech G29 and a play seat Evolution race seat, and it was just before the point of time when F1 2017 came out, and me, McKenzie Stewart, and Alex Little, or Stuart McKenzie 2 and Pure Axel 2121, as most people know them as, we used to race all the time. We always used to make our own commentaries. We just used to make our own career modes out of the races that we did online, and we were doing this one particular online race, and no matter what we did, we were always taken out by those people that just join lobbies just to be a pain. So I said, one day I'm going to create a league, or I'm going to join a league and get out of this, and they said, oh yeah, go for it. So I initially went to AOR, and their race times didn't fit with me. Alex was in a league that operated at 10 o'clock at night, which didn't fit with me either, and then he had another one at 7 o'clock in the morning Sundays, and I thought, well, Sundays seem a bit more reasonable, but I just couldn't commit to the time at the point. So I went to the Codemasters website and I made a post and said, is there any leagues out there operating on a Sunday? If I don't hear a response within a day, I'm going to make my own league. So I didn't hear a response, and I decided, okay, I'll make my own one. A lot of people probably came to the conclusion that the name of the league, the Trans-Tasman Challenge, was meant to be an Australian, New Zealand, or Oceania-based league. So I think that's probably why registrations weren't as big as they were. The first person who actually registered to the board was, other than Mackenzie and Alex, who they were registered in, but they weren't official on the website that I'd made. The first person who actually officially registered was Axel. But the problem was that I was never good at maths, so my time zone numbers were incorrect. So I had actually put in 1 p.m. GMT, which is the European time zone.
Oh yeah.
So he thought that races were on at like 1 p.m. his time. So when he found out that it was actually meant to be 1 p.m. New Zealand time, he said he wouldn't be able to do that because that would be like 2 in the morning for him. So he asked me if he could be a reserve driver if anyone needed to, and then from there I kind of sort of put it all together and thought, okay, so the times are all wrong. So I put them back to New Zealand time and then moved it back to about 11 a.m. So and then that was when a lot more people started to come in. So we had like Tough Dog F1, Habs for Life 634. Who else did we have at that time?
Myself just after maybe.
No, you came in about round 3, which was Belgium.
Yeah.
But
I missed the first.
Oh, we had a guy named Cloudy Balloons. He didn't actually stick around after the race. So we had about, I'm just trying to think, because we had 6 drivers in the first race, which was myself, Alex, McKenzie, Tough Dog, Jonathon. So it was those guys. And then come Spain, we had Simon and Matt turn up. They raced as well. We had a lot more people registered into the league, but we were having so much problem with attendance. And then of course, you turned up at Belgium, and then I think you and Jimmy 6 also registered on the same time, but Jimmy 6 didn't join till Bahrain, as well as Mason or XNZ Pro 55.
Yeah.
And then
I think Simon was there as well. I think.
Simon joined at Spain, and then of course won his first race almost straight away. Going from 6 members at the start of this data test to going to 16 at the end was it was unbelievable. I mean, I couldn't, I've done so many projects in my life. I've done a bridge series for anime. I've done all kinds of things. I've made my own manga series. Everything that I've done has always flopped. So to be in this game for 7 months now and have at least 40 drivers in the category fighting for a world championship in their respective category, it's so unreal. It's almost like a dream. You can't believe that there's so many people wanting to represent your league, even though it is international. I mean, a lot of leagues these days focus on the national side of things, and that's something that I wouldn't mind doing later down the road when we have a few more people that would be more willing to take the commentary side, and then we could probably develop a transnation national league association where different areas can race on different days, so long as it's being put on the website. A lot of people have said, why are you trying to do this? You're not going to be as great as AOR or ASR or all these big name things, but I disagree. I really think in time the Transnation Challenge could be bigger than AOR, and AOR sits at the pinnacle of league racing around the world. It doesn't matter what console, what machine you use, AOR is the pinnacle of online racing. So if we can get ourselves to that point, that would be one of the biggest achievements of my life. And one of the things that is holding me back at the moment is my job. So I want to try and do everything in my power to be able to earn the revenue enough to get out of my job and continue focusing on this 100%. I want to make the broadcast a lot like what you see on Sky Sport. I want to be able to look at these videos and say, hey, I did this. Well, actually, no, not we. Because it's not just about me. I may be the boss, I may call the shots in some regards, but it's people like you that sit at my side and do commentary. It's people doing the driving, the other commentators doing their part. I couldn't be here if it wasn't for these people supporting me. My girlfriend, who doesn't really know anything about motorsport at all, is even showing her support for me. So these are the kind of things that make life worth living and make this league worth fighting for. So I want to do everything in my power to make this league bigger than AOR and even bigger than the FIA's Formula 1 coverage.
Well, that's certainly a nice goal to be having, and I think I can definitely vouch for the enjoyment factor in this league. I've loved it myself, having competed in other leagues, and I have found this one to be more enjoyable, and I feel like it brings a lot to the world of league racing. It's, you know, as you say, it's a very comprehensive package that you've put together with all of the off-track stuff as well. Which kind of leads me on. My last question will be, what would you say to, let's have you say you have a potential candidate for joining the league. What would you sell as maybe the three points of this league to sell it over other leagues? What would you say makes this one unique, makes it an attractive prospect to race in?
Well, for starters, I would say that the first point is that we've got two of the world's fastest drivers in this category.
Yep.
And that is a selling point in itself. So by saying we've got the fastest drivers in the world, come and prove that you have what it takes to take these guys on and win. I mean, we've had a few candidates that have actually been able to out-qualify these guys, not necessarily win the races, but so,
yeah.
You know, the prospect is still there that there is someone out there that could beat these two, but that's the first selling point. Come and see if you're worthy enough to take these guys on. A second selling point is that you're in an environment of people that aren't judgy on other people's driving abilities. I mean, we can often joke about it on things like Transnation Superstars and all that kind of stuff. But I mean, that's the purpose of Transnation Superstars, is to allow drivers to express their anger or disappointment based on previous races without, you know, and gives them a week to kind of simmer down and not exactly throw what they want to say at this person in a full-blown war of words. So the Transnation Superstars was created for a sense of having fun, broadening out the race perspectives and looking at it from other people's perspectives, as well as get an idea of what people believe they want to do for the next race, if there is one preceding that. And of course, the third selling point I would say is that you don't see very many international style leagues because of the fact of the lag system, but you're racing against drivers from different parts of the world, and what better way than to represent your country in the nationality system. We've got people from America, the UK, Germany, the Netherlands, Argentina, Brazil. We have drivers from nearly every continent in the world racing in this league, and I think that given the time, we can advance ourselves to make this national side of it as well. So the more people we can draw in that might not necessarily want to be part of it as a driver, but as a commentator or an organizer for their nationality, that would be what we would do to be able to advance this league into not only just a single international contest, but a contest of all the national areas, so, you know, all 7 continents. So that's something I want to see in the future. I'll be realistic and say I don't think I would see that happening for at least another year or so, maybe around the time of F1 2019 maybe, but 2018 I just want to focus on making this league as close to the actual Formula 1 as possible. Henceforth, why we've got one of these segments now in the broadcast. Of course, we'll also have best of team radio and all that kind of stuff. So I just really want to see this league succeed, because everything else in my life has failed. Every project I've aspired to has failed, and this is something I want to succeed to the point where I can just die knowing I've accomplished something in my life.
Well, I think that's a sufficiently serious tone to draw this to a conclusion, but I will say that I feel like so far it's been a massive success with how much it has grown, as you say, the amount of drivers that we've got and people involved with the league, and not only that, but the community that you have helped put together here. I feel like everyone is becoming, friends, and from people all, as you say, all over the world, people becoming friends, and it's been great fun as well. So I think we can say thanks to you for organising that.
Well,
and that's all right. And that brings to a close. I've been Guy Tasker. This has been my moment of seriousness, and thanks to Brett Keenan for being my first victim here. So thanks very much, and thanks for listening. I hope to see you all again next week.
So looking ahead now, we'll now move away from Russia and go to the Spanish Grand Prix. Now, Spain is a demon track. There's no denying that. It's a fast-flowing, very loading circuit that demands a lot from the tyres. A lot of drivers have taken this week to practice the track in racing simulation and qualifying simulation and all that, but not a lot of drivers have been able to execute a perfect one-stop. And Stuart McKenzie, we saw this in the last few days. Why do you think it is that the one-stop, which people think is the way to go, isn't the way to go?
Yeah, well, if you look at the Spanish track layout, like you look at it and see that like there's so many loading corners on the left-hand side of the tire, especially that front left. Like it just burns the tires so much out of the tires, and it just makes drivers question maybe the one-stop isn't the correct strategy to go. Like because you have corners like turn 3, turn 8. And then turn 10 as well, the right-hander after the hairpin. Like it just puts so much load on those left-hand side of the tires. Like the drivers will be struggling with making those tires last, and having a balance setup that saves the tires and makes your car faster. It's going to be a difficult weekend for the drivers to set the cars up right. It'll kind of show those better drivers from the good drivers, because they can save their tyres and still be quick all weekend. And
Guy, do you think this could be a track where we could see the likes of Noah 3712 and Black Mamba 0113 struggle?
I think I wouldn't expect them to struggle for pace, obviously. I think we all know that they've got the pace to be able to be up there on the podium. But I think it is possible that this is the weekend where they could be undone, based on the fact that they could be beaten on strategy. Really, someone might come up with a better strategy. You say someone might be able to execute a nice one-stop from behind them, and if they can keep it within range of them, then perhaps they'll jump them on the pit stops. If Noek and Black Mamba don't feel they can execute the one-stop, so it is possible that we could see someone else sneak up in front of them really this weekend.
Well, one of the biggest things and one of the biggest telling points is qualifying as well, and using up your tyres to set a qualifying lap. A lot of drivers, and there are, I won't name them, but there are a select few that have thought of the idea of not qualifying at all to have that slightly fresher tyre than everyone else at the start of the race. Now, whether that comes down to just getting on the mediums or the hards and then just doing a really dodgy lap, that pretty much means that you've qualified on your fastest time on that tyre. So you start on that. It plays a really interesting part. Spain is such a track that it's not about how fast your car is, it's about how you look after the tyres. And Jay, if you're still there with us, how do you think people in the GP3, do you think people in the GP3 will be wanting to try and watch the F1 and the GP2 races as a spectator just to see how they can approach their racing? No, looks like we appear to be having some transmission issues with Jayden. So,
Sorry about that.
here we go. Yep.
Oh, okay, yeah. So for sure, I think that you always look at the people that are better than you to try and get better yourself in anything. So, if you look at that, everybody in GP3 is going to want to see what everybody in F1 and GP2 are doing, just like anybody in GP2 would want to see what everybody else is doing and see what works for people, and what's like, oh, maybe they tried the one stop and 90% of people it didn't work out for, so they're obviously not going to do it then. So I think that gives GP3 drivers a slight advantage, especially if they get to see those races.
Well, I think it plays in the same as well, because defending champion Arashi Uzumaki admitted that he, I might as well stop saying it like I'm pretending he's not someone else, it's me. So, I watched the GP2 race in Bahrain, and that gave me the impression that the one stop wouldn't work there. So that was why I switched to the two stop, which was a guaranteed finish. But for Spain, this might sound a little crazy, but the idea of a three stop isn't necessarily a bad option, I don't think, because
I've considered the same thing myself.
Because
I've tried it.
Yes, you're going to fall behind the pack, but someone on a two-stop, if we look at the facts, so the key strategy, what I think would play out for a two-stop, and I did notice this last night, is that you would go from the soft to the medium and then the medium again. So that's your two-stop. But there will be some people that will likely start on the mediums and then do the reverse play, or start on the mediums, go on the softs, then back on the mediums for the end. So somebody like that is going to have ailing tyres at the end of the race, no matter what strategy you're on through the two-stop. Someone that goes on the three-stop, they'll come in, let's say about lap 5, come on the mediums, do that run, come in about lap 17, go back on the softs again, do another 5-lap blast, and then go on the mediums again for the last stint. So it might not be the fastest on paper, but it's definitely in the strategy side of things, it's not necessarily a bad call. So
I think I agree. It's a valid option.
And then
it's almost
I found this myself. I think the soft tyre appears to be so much faster around this track than the other tyres. It's a massive advantage to be able to run more stints on the soft tyre. Personally, that's my opinion.
Yeah, in every stint you're going to be catching up to people, because when you're on the mediums, you're going to have fresher tires than the softs that are starting to run out for everybody else. And then you jump back on the softs and you're way faster than everybody else. And then go back to the mediums, and those people that are on the mediums at the end of the race are going to start to slow down, and you're on fresh mediums, so you're faster than all those people too. It's almost sort of like an undercut a little bit.
And saying that too, the hard tyre is not exactly the bad tyre, or such a bad tyre to be on either, if all else fails. So strategy definitely is the key to winning Spain, and what better way to view Spain than on board my own car with our old man here, Jayden Alton, commentating. So we'll look at the one-lap dash.
And as we come along the last right corner, he's just going to cross the line to start his flying lap. And he's up into 8th gear on this DRS pit lane straight. He comes into the first right-hander, quickly into the second, straddling the curb there, into this long right-hander. One of the reasons that Spain is so hard on your tires. As he comes to the next right-hander, he's down right into 4th and up into 5th as he comes out of that corner. Really good there. Down into 3rd as he goes into this left-hander. Just staying on the track there as he goes up into 7th and through that left-hander, then a right, and possibly one of the hardest tracks in the F1 game on your tires. Comes into this next right-hander. Well done there to get that right. Down to his 3rd, slight hairpin. Bit wide there. Up into 4th, and then another right-hander. As you can see, this track is very hard on your left tires as he takes another right-hander into the final chicane. And up into third and fourth for this last right-hander. And he comes up to the line, DRS kicks in, and across the line.
So looking ahead beyond this first season of the Trans Nation Challenge, of course, Codemasters have just recently brought out the survey for beta testing for F1 2018. So a lot of drivers are definitely, I'd say a lot of drivers here will definitely be getting trying to get a chance to get into that and give themselves that little bit of extra advantage over the other drivers heading into season 2018, which we'll cover now too, just before we go to Axel's pit report. One of the biggest things that we ran a test for it last night, and it's proven to be workable, so we're going to be incorporating it from Hungary to right through to season 2018. The formation lap will be returning for the Trans Nation Challenge. We had the formation lap in the beta test, but of course people were saying that it wasn't needed for something like this, but now that we can see it on broadcasting standard, we can use it for broadcasting purposes. So formation lap will be coming back. Safety car, still a little iffy on that. We might test it for this weekend again, and if it fails again, then it will be off until 2018 comes along. So that's pretty much covered in there, and then we'll have a look at what's changed over the course of the year, the weekend for the TNC categories at the moment. So of course it's just previously mentioned that Bruno Galavisa from Brazil is partnering up with me at Ferrari for F1. We have a new driver in RZDV 2000 for Force India in GP2. He'll be partnering up with Don Venzito, who has moved from Haas to Force India, to allow Sarah May a full-time entry in the category as Beardy's teammate. Moving to GP3, we see Meters 555 enter the category. He'll be partnering up with Rise KYC at Renault. So now GP3 with 16 drivers, and all cars have at least both drivers, so that's good. So we'll just cross now to Axel's pit report.
Welcome back to the weekly pit lane report following the Russian Grand Prix. My name is Axel Eriksson, and I will be presenting this week's news for you. Starting off with F1, we had an eventful race with crashes, controversy, and extremely many penalties. After 29 laps, Black Mamba 0113 was the first driver to cross the line. I had a chat with the German about the race. He said that he managed to get a solid qualifying lap and thus securing pole position, but he failed to maintain first place after a horrible getaway for the Toro Rosso. He pushed to get back first place, but by then his tires were completely destroyed. So at the end of his first stint, he lost the rear and spun around, giving the lead to myself. In the second stint, no one could match Black Mamba, and in the end he won the race comfortably in front of his brother Nowak 3712. With the current championship leader finishing 4th, there are currently 10 points between Narushi Uzumaki in 1st and Black Mamba in 2nd. Black Mamba is confident about the current situation, claiming that he's not worried at all. In the constructors, Toro Rosso is in the lead by 10 points over Ferrari. On lap 5, we had a very interesting incident with Black Mamba, the Joker 35 and Rabbit Donkey 96. I asked the Red Bull driver Rabbit Donkey 96 about the incident, which put him out of the competition for first place. He said he took advantage of the cars in front of him. Fighting by getting the best possible exit onto the second DRS straight. He went on the inside of the gradual left-hand corner on the straight, which became the outside of the 90-degree right-hander. The Joker 35 tried to outbrake him, but braked too late, crashing into the back of Black Mamba's Toro Rosso. Rabbit Donkey then crashed in the back of the Joker 35, which left him with a broken front wing. He had to change his strategy and pit on lap 5, so he went on the softs instead of the super soft, so he could make it to the end. But in the pit stops, it went wrong. The team didn't change his front wing, and therefore he had to pit again, completely ruining his race. He was the last driver to finish the race. Moving over to GP2, I had a chat with race winner Mverche. He qualified 2nd, but after the race leader crashed in turn 1, Mverche would go on to lead. No one could match the Argentinian, and he would go on to win the race. McLaren is really happy at the moment. Not only did Emerche win the race, but his new teammate, Pure Axel 2121, managed to recover brilliantly after an incident in turn 1 which forced him to pit. When he came out of the pits, he was P8, but he somehow managed to finish second. Both drivers were really happy about the car McLaren gave them. McLaren is now in the lead of the constructors by 17 points ahead of Sauber and Ferrari. Following the incredible weekend for McLaren, other teams might be concerned about the current situation. I had a chat with Stuart McKenzie too, who is in the lead of the driver's title in GP2. It was a disappointing race for him. Having technical issues in qualifying meant that he would only be starting 9th. After what looked like a promising start for the Kiwi, he would go on to retire from the race later on for unknown reasons. He is already looking forward to the next race in Spain, claiming that the Ferrari is good around Spain. With only 11 points down to second place in the championship, Stuart McKenzie needs to do better if he wants to stay on the top. Moving over to GP3, we had an eventful qualifying session where a New Zealand Pro 55 got his first pole position of his career. He said that he had changed his mindset after some disappointing races, which clearly worked. Moving over to GP3, we had an eventful qualifying session where a New Zealand Pro 55 got his first pole position of his career. He said that he had changed his mindset after some disappointing races, which clearly worked. In the race, however, New Zealand Pro struggled and made mistakes that ultimately cost him the race win, but he says that he just has to learn from his mistakes and focus on the next race where he's aiming for the top. So what are we going to see in the next race in Spain? Stay tuned to find out.
So one of the biggest things that we want to know, and I know it's a week early to be talking about it, but we go from Spain to Monaco. So I want all four of you guys' input on how you think Monaco's going to play out, because Monaco is not the easiest track to master, but at the same time, it's the one track everyone wants to win. So, Guy, we'll grab your perspective on it first.
Yeah, good question. It's a tough one, isn't it? I think personally, it could all be a case of slow and steady wins the race in a way. I think we can expect incidents. I think obviously it's a bit of a circuit prone to hitting the wall, losing wing, things like that. I think we will see a fair few incidences of that in all three categories. So I think someone perhaps just behind the leaders, just running slightly off the pace, but keeps it safe. Perhaps being a little bit conservative. I think there's a good chance there that one of them could pick up the win. I think, personally.
Jonathon, your thoughts?
What was the question again?
Well, we just want your perspective on how you think Monaco is going to play out in a week's time.
Mainly in GP3, because that's the category that I actually race in. Not to say that the drivers that we've got down there aren't capable of doing it, but like you just said, we have 16 drivers in GP3, so if every single one of them shows up, like look at sometimes how the calamity is in the real life F1 race with 20 cars. You get even just the 16 of us onto the track for Monaco, then like GP3, I think it's going to be like that'll be pretty darn close to being last man standing. But in GP2 and GP3, I could see it coming. It's a lot of it's going to come down to strategy. I can really see it coming down to strategy. Who makes the fewest mistakes going around there, because there's plenty of opportunities for corner cutting. Like you miss your braking marker and you're going to corner cut going into like coming out of the tunnel, or even into the first turn, you turn a little too early, boom, you've cut that corner. So that's really going to be is who can corner cut the least.
And McKenzie, because in your perspective would be quite interesting, because of course you won it last season.
Yeah, no, it's pretty much the same as Jonathon. Like, it'll just be like the people who can keep it out of the wall the least, and the guys who can corner cut the least. Personally, like the GP3 race, the GP2 race will, like as Jonathon said as well, it'll just come down to strategy. Like, because do you pit early and get the fresher tires on, but then if you pit early and you get caught up in traffic, and because Monaco's so tight with the 2017 variant to the cars, it's basically impossible to pass. So do you risk pitting early and getting that undercut on the driver in front of you, but do you risk getting caught in traffic from the guys behind you, and then therefore giving the guy in front of you more of an overcut to maybe get into clearer traffic?
Very interesting points there. And Jay, your thoughts?
Well, as you go up the league, so F1 obviously they're better than everybody else, and I see probably, there's going to be some crashes, but a lot less than GP3. So in F1, the race is more about who can qualify in first, because basically if you're like McKenzie said, it's such a hard track to pass, and trying to do an undercut or overcut is very risky. So I feel like most people won't take too much of a risk with that, but we'll see what happens. But as you get down to GP3, just like Jonathan's been saying, it's like last man standing sort of. If you finish the race, you're getting points. Even if we start with 15 people, there's going to be at least 5 people crash out, because especially already in real life, it's so hard to not crash. But then in the game, there's lag and other factors that'll affect that. So I see as you go down, more and more crashes.
Of course, this is all happening in a week's time. We are in preparations for the Spanish Grand Prix, so that's all the time that we have for today for the pre-season, or the pre-race broadcast for the Transnation Challenge. It's been Brett Keenan, Jonathon Carten, Guy Tasker, McKenzie Stewart and Jayden Alton signing out here. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Also be ready for Transnation Superstars about to get underway very shortly. And of course, don't forget to tune in and be ready for when the races for round 5 of the Transnation Challenge will be uploaded onto YouTube. Till then, this is a Transnation Challenge crew signing out.